Hello, I am Alham Gulbush Najad and this is Dhaka to Dakar, the music of discontent. I am a cultural studies researcher and ethnographer. My area of interest has been hip-hop politics and cultures in Muslim-majority societies for the past 15 years. In this series of podcasts, I like to explore the world of resisting music in Islamic-hate societies. But before we delve into it, let me begin with what this podcast is not about. This is not a pan-Islamist podcast, nor is it an anti-Islamist one. And this project is not intended to feed nationalist ambitions of any kind. I am not going to paint the vast area between Dhaka to Dakar with the same brush. Simply, I want to picture how cultural exchange through music shapes the collective memory of hundreds of millions of people. In 2003, I saw the film The Color of Pomegranates by Sergei Parajanov, the Armenian-Georgian filmmaker. It was stunning. I was lost in the poetic beauty of the film, which had minimal dialogue. But the most interesting experience for me was that I did not feel it was an Iranian film. The imagery, poetry, symbolism, and even the mundane chores like dusting and washing the rugs and then hanging them under the sun, all of it felt like home. The film is furnished with symbologies I recognize, especially cinematic shots that look precisely like Persian miniatures. I was perplexed. The film is made in 1969 in the Soviet Union and is a poetic take on the life of the 18th century Christian Orthodox Armenian poet Sayat Nova. I was so stunned by the film that I began to look into why I felt so familiar with every little thing in it. Well, Sayat Nova lived in the 18th century and wrote his poems in multiple languages, including Armenian and Persian. Although he was a practicing Orthodox Christian, his poetry and philosophy also merged with those of the Sufi poet he was so fond of, Jalaluddin Muhammad Balkhi, also known as Rumi. From this point, I got familiar with the term Persianate societies. It became even more interesting. So I dug into it more and was shocked to see that Iran, the country that I feel so sorry for all the time, the Persian language I feel obliged to use to communicate with my niece living in Bulgaria so that she knows of our place of origin, was once an imperial cultural enforcement in such an extensive area. From present-day Bangladesh to India, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Armenia, Georgia, and all the way to Bosnia. The collection of these countries is usually referred to as the Persianate or Turco-Persianate societies. These terms were first proposed by the American historian and Islamic studies academic Marshall Hodgson. But when we are talking about such multi-ethnic, multiracial, and multicultural places, I prefer using what Shahab Ahmed, another Islamic studies scholar, more recently calls the Balkan to Bengal complex. This complex includes geographical regions extending from the Balkans, some countries like present-day Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, the Republic of Kosovo, Bulgaria, and Slovenia, through Anatolia, the Asian portion of Turkey, Persia, present-day Iran, and Central Asia down and across Afghanistan and North India to the Bay of Bengal. Such a vast area. In my research, I learned that one of the things that connected these places was the influence of the gunpowder empires, the three powerful and brutal empires between the 15th and 16th centuries. The Ottomans, which originated in present-day Turkey, the Safavid dynasty in present-day Iran, and the Mongol Empire, which ruled in India and present-day Bangladesh. Historians Marshall Hodgson and William McNeill call these three ruling powers the gunpowder empires. These empires used and advanced what China had invented, the gunpowder. The cultural importance of the gunpowder empires is because all three of them ruled over a wide variety of places at the same time, and they were advocates of Islamic beliefs and faith, which Hodgson calls Islamdom. In the 1500s, the Common Era, Islam was expanding over the Northern Hemisphere as a cultural and political order. The Christians, for example, in Spain, Bulgaria, and Serbia, Hindus, mainly in India, were ruled by Muslims or enclaved by them. It was a time when Islamic empires impacted the culture, literature, and arts in many sectors of the world. Also, these empires were in close relationship with each other, so Turkish, Arabic, and Persian languages were used in courts and cross-empire interactions as the lingua franca of the time. As a result, these three languages became the communicating languages among a variety of societies. So at these times, a Christian from Spain might understand Persian or Turkish and even communicate with people from those regions using these languages. In a sense, these three languages became the languages of the everyday or the ordinary. In many cases, Islam was not even the practicing religion of the place. For example, in parts of Bengal, Armenia, or Bulgaria. But we can see the fingerprints of Islamic culture, literature, and philosophy in the arts and even architecture of these places. We're talking about a time when individuals constantly moved along well-established and protected routes that were linking Istanbul in Turkey with Isfahan in Iran and Delhi in India. Merchants, poets, artists, scholars, military advisors, and philosophers all moved with relative ease along these caravan routes and across political boundaries. The history of these empires illuminates a shared, complex culture. So, it is understandable that the film Color of Pomegranate may paint a familiar image for a wide range of people, from Tajikistan to Iran, to Turkey, Egypt, and all the way to Morocco and beyond. This complexity shows itself also in resistance music. Resistance in music in these areas, especially in the last 2 centuries, has sometimes been against the imperial powers, sometimes colonial administrations, and at times the totalitarian regimes. My focus here is on resistance music in the 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries. For example, baul music in Bangladesh against colonialism in the 1940s, or hip-hop and punk music in Afghanistan against totalitarian regimes, and the turn to Persian traditional music resisting the forceful modernization of the country in the early 20th century. Resistance music questions not only the ruling power, but all institutions of power and their discourses, including but not limited to race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, and class. In this series of podcasts, I plan to take you on a journey to various places from Dhaka to Dakar to hear the sound of discontent in culturally connected places. The next episode, which will be episode 1 of my journey, will be on the music of discontent in Bangladesh. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey.